I turned 68 the day my son tossed my suitcase at my feet and said, "You're nothing but dead weight now, Mom." Dad knew better than to leave you anything real. His voice didn't crack, didn't hesitate, didn't carry an ounce of regret. He said it the way someone might state a weather forecast, plain, factual, almost bored. Then he pointed to the little rusted key on the counter, the one the lawyer had given me only an hour earlier, and smirked like he was handing me a joke prize from a carnival booth. "Enjoy your garage." That word sliced straight through my chest. After 42 years of marriage, after decades of cooking, caring, and praying for my family, was that really all I was worth? My hands trembled as I picked up that key, and my son was already walking away, tapping on his phone, planning the new interior design for the penthouse that used to be my home. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't even ask him to reconsider. I simply picked up my suitcase, my life reduced to one shaky handle, and walked out the door. The elevator ride down felt endless. Every floor a reminder of a life I thought belonged to me. When the lobby doors opened, the night air felt colder than it should have, sharp enough to sting my cheeks. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the building's shining glass facade, remembering anniversaries, Christmases, mornings with coffee on the balcony with my husband. All of it felt like it had been wiped clean in an instant. The doorman looked at me with confusion. He'd known me for years, but I forced a smile and kept walking. I didn't trust my voice not to break. I drove without a plan, the city lights blurring in my peripheral vision as I tried to understand what had just happened. My son's words echoed inside my skull like a cruel chant. Worthless, old, dead weight, as if he had been waiting years to say them. My husband had been gone only 3 weeks, and grief was still sitting heavy in my chest. I'd been clinging to the belief that at least my son and I still had each other, but that belief crumbled the moment he shoved me toward the elevator with nothing but a suitcase and a rusty key. Around midnight, I pulled up to a part of the industrial district I'd never been in before, a row of dark warehouses hiding behind chain-link fences. My GPS insisted that the address from the will my sole inheritance was somewhere on this street. The building looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. A dented metal door leaned slightly in its frame, paint peeling like old sunburned skin. The padlock hanging in the center was red with rust, the kind that looked like it would crumble if you breathed too hard on it. I stepped out of the car, hearing nothing but the faint hum of distant traffic and the occasional drip of water from a broken gutter. The air smelled of motor oil, wet concrete, and something metallic I couldn't identify. I held the key in my hand, staring at it under the flicker of a weak street lamp. It didn't match the building. This place looked like it belonged to forgotten machinery, not to anything my husband would ever leave behind. My fingers shook so badly I dropped the key once before finally getting it into the lock. It turned with a deep, reluctant click, the sound echoing in the quiet street. My breath caught as the door groaned open, loud and heavy, like something waking from a long sleep. A wave of stale air drifted out, dust, old tools, a hint of gasoline, but underneath, it was strange. There was something clean in it, something controlled. I lifted my flashlight, expecting piles of junk or maybe a broken-down workbench. Instead, the beam landed on smooth shapes hidden under fitted covers, arranged with nearly military precision. I froze in the doorway, one hand still gripping the frame. My son had mocked this place like it was trash, like it was proof my husband hadn't cared about me at all. But this wasn't some forgotten dump. Someone had been here. Recently, someone had cleaned, organized, prepared. My heart thudded in my chest as I took a step inside, the concrete floor sending a cold shock through the soles of my shoes. The flashlight beam skimmed across the ceiling, and that's when I saw the thin, modern strip of LED lighting running the length of the rafters. It wasn't turned on, but the installation was new. No dust, no corrosion, no sag. I walked deeper into the space, my suitcase wheels rattling behind me like a nagging reminder of what I'd lost. The shapes under the covers were tall, long, curved, the kind of shapes that made no sense in a place this old. My shadow danced along the walls, stretching and shrinking with each trembling breath. And then I saw it. An envelope taped neatly next to a light switch. My name written on it in handwriting I knew as well as my own, my husband's. Seeing those familiar loops and strokes nearly buckled my knees. He had written this. He had taped it here. He had planned this moment. I reached out, fingertips brushing the edge of the envelope, my breath coming short and sharp. The flashlight shook in my other hand, sending fractured light across the covers behind me. Why would he leave me this? Why keep this place hidden? Why give our son everything grand and visible, and leave me something tucked in the shadows? And more importantly, what could possibly be under those covers that required a secret garage, brand new lighting, and a handwritten message waiting for me after his death? I lifted the envelope with both hands, careful as if it might disappear. My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the distant hum of the street. I stared at my name for long seconds, unable to open it yet. I needed air. I needed a second to breathe. But before I could step back, I glanced over my shoulder, and the beam of my flashlight caught something metallic peeking from under the nearest cover. A shape so sleek and polished, it reflected the thin line of LED above. My heart lurched, my throat tightened, and for the first time since leaving the penthouse, hope flickered inside my chest. Because whatever was hidden in this garage, whatever my husband had built here in secret, it was not worthless. And I knew deep in my bones that my son had made the worst mistake of his life when he mocked that key. I swallowed hard, turned back to the envelope, and whispered to myself, "Okay, let's see what you were trying to tell me. It's not heaven." I didn't open the envelope yet. My fingers were shaking too violently, and I knew once I read what was inside, there would be no going back, no returning to the life I thought I had, no pretending the last month hadn't ripped me open. So I set the envelope gently on the edge of a metal shelf and closed my eyes for a moment, letting the cool air of the garage settle over me. In that stillness, the memory of that afternoon, the reading of the will flooded back so sharply it felt like someone pressed a knife into my ribs. I had walked into that office believing my husband had simply overlooked something, or that I'd misread a document. But what happened there shaped everything that followed. The attorney's office had smelled faintly of old paper and lemon disinfectant, the kind of scent you notice only when your nerves are frayed. I remember adjusting my black dress as I sat down, the same dress I'd worn at my husband's funeral 3 weeks earlier. My son sat beside me, straight-backed, polished, his suit crisp and expensive, his jaw set with anticipation. I thought he was grieving alongside me. I thought we were there to honor his father, but the way he kept glancing at the attorney, tapping his thumb against the table, made something in my stomach tighten. I didn't understand why until the reading began. Mr. Caldwell, the family attorney for years, cleared his throat like he was swallowing a confession. He adjusted his glasses twice, then looked at us with this uncomfortable stiffness I'd never seen in him. "Before I begin," he said, "I want to remind you both that this will is legally binding and represents your husband's final instructions." He hesitated, and that pause should have warned me. I didn't catch it at the time. I was still wrapped in the fog of grief, still expecting fairness, decency, love to guide what came next. Then he began reading. "To my son." I saw Jonathan's spine straighten. "I leave the penthouse property and my primary investment accounts." The pride in my son's face was instant, sharp, hungry. He didn't look at me, but he didn't need to. I could feel the satisfaction radiating off him like heat. That moment should have told me everything about who he'd become, but I didn't want to see it. I wasn't ready to. Then came the part addressed to me. "And to my wife, I leave the property located at," and he read out the address of the garage I was now standing in. My heart sank so fast it felt like the room tilted. A garage, a run-down industrial garage. That was it. No savings accounts, no shared home, no mention of support after decades of marriage. My mouth went dry. My ears started ringing. I remember blinking at the attorney, waiting for the rest, waiting for him to say, "and additionally," but nothing else came. My son leaned back in his chair and let out a small scoff, barely hiding his satisfaction. Then he placed a hand on my shoulder and squeezed too tight, like a performance for the lawyer. "Don't worry, Mom," he murmured. "I'll make sure you're taken care of." But the tone, the condescension, the way he said "Mom," like it was a role he was tired of pretending to play, it cut straight into me. Still, I stayed quiet. Shock does that. It turns your voice into sand. After the meeting ended, I tried asking the attorney if there had been a mistake, but he only shook his head and avoided my eyes. Jonathan escorted me out of the office, like he was doing me a favor. His hand stayed on my back the whole way, guiding me, pressing slightly forward, like he couldn't wait to get me out. When we reached the parking garage, he paused beside his car and turned to me with this cold resolve I had never seen in his expression before. "It'd be better if you found another place to stay," he said. "The penthouse is mine now. I have renovations starting tomorrow." I stared at him, stunned. "Where am I supposed to go, Jonathan?" I whispered. His answer came without hesitation. "You have the garage, or Aunt Lisa's couch. You'll figure it out." He said it like I was a teenager messing up a sleepover plan, not his mother who had just buried her husband. I remember gripping the strap of my purse, trying to steady my breath. "I just lost your father," I said, my voice breaking. "I need time to—" He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "Time won't change anything, Mom. You're not staying in the penthouse. It's not your home anymore." Then he opened the driver's door, tossed my suitcase onto the curb, and delivered the final blow as casually as one dismisses an employee. "You're old, Mom. I can't keep supporting you forever. Dad didn't trust you with real assets, and he was right. If you want to do," there it was. Cruelty laid bare. The cruelty he'd probably been holding back for years. I felt something in my chest collapse, not heartbreak, something colder. Realization that my son didn't see me as his mother anymore. He saw me as an inconvenience. When he drove off, the wind from the acceleration blew my hair across my face. I didn't cry. Not then. Shock held me upright like stiff wires. I picked up my suitcase and stood there until the taillights disappeared. The street was quiet, empty, uncaring, and I realized in that moment how truly alone I was. Back in the garage now, surrounded by shadows and mystery, that memory still stung like a fresh bruise. I glanced at the envelope again, my name soft and familiar in my husband's handwriting. Had he known our son would do this? Had he tried to warn me in the only way he knew how? The more I thought about it, the more my chest tightened. But not from fear, from something else. Something stronger. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Resolve. If my husband had left me this place, there was a reason. If he had tucked secrets in these walls, secrets Jonathan didn't know existed, there was a reason. And tonight, standing in this quiet garage with its strange, clean air and hidden shapes, I felt the weight of that reason pressing against my ribs. Slowly, I picked up the envelope again. My fingertips traced the familiar strokes of my name, and tears welled in my eyes, not from sorrow this time, but from the sense that the truth waiting inside might shatter the lies I'd believed about my life and about the people in it. I took a deep breath, the kind that reaches all the way into the spine. "All right," I whispered. "Show me what you left behind. I have denied." And with that, I slid my thumb under the flap. The envelope trembled in my hand as I slid my thumb under the flap. The paper was thick. My husband always bought good stationery. Even after everything, that small detail made my chest ache. I unfolded the letter carefully, bracing myself for apologies, explanations, maybe even a confession. But the first line was not what I expected. "My love," it read, written in his neat, almost architectural handwriting. "If you are reading this, then I am gone, and our son has revealed more of himself than I ever hoped you would have to see." My breath caught halfway in my throat. He knew. He absolutely knew. He had seen something in Jonathan long before I was willing to admit it. I read the next lines slowly, afraid to blink, afraid the words might disappear. "I left you the garage because it was the safest place to protect what I've built for you. Not for him, not for anyone else. For you." My pulse hammered so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I leaned back against the cool concrete wall, gripping the letter with both hands as though it were the only thing keeping me anchored. My husband had known our son would push me aside, known he would treat the inheritance as his entitlement, and instead of confronting him directly, he had built something in the shadows, something right here. I lifted the flashlight, letting the beam sweep across the covered shapes again. The silence of the garage pressed closer around me, heavy with secrets. I kept reading. "I couldn't tell you while I was alive. I needed time to arrange everything without interference, without Jonathan discovering what I was doing. I feared he might try to take control of it, or convince you to sign it away." My legs went weak. I slid down the wall and sat on the cold floor. the letter open across my knees. I could almost hear his voice, gentle, steady, the way it used to be when he wanted to protect me from something. "I know you may feel hurt right now," the letter continued, "but trust me when I tell you this. Nothing I have done was meant to diminish you. It was meant to shield you." That line cracked me open. Shield me. All those times I thought he was distracted, distant, preoccupied. He was building a shield. For me. For the woman he'd shared 4 decades with. A sob rose in my throat, and this time I couldn't swallow it back. The tears came hot and quiet, slipping down my cheeks as the flashlight shook in my hand. I forced myself to keep reading. "You might think the garage is worthless, but I've hidden value inside it that Jonathan would never understand. Not money alone, not property alone, something that carries history, stability, and meaning." My eyes flicked to the nearest covered shape. A chill crawled up my spine. He wasn't talking about storage bins. He wasn't talking about tools. The shapes were too large, too carefully arranged. My husband had loved craftsmanship, engineering, beauty, the kind that lasts generations. And the letter seemed to hint at that love woven into metal and memory. The next paragraph stopped my breath entirely. "There are 3 items here beneath the covers," he wrote. "Each chosen for a reason, each protected, each restored with care, and each one worth far more than Jonathan can even imagine." For a moment, the entire garage felt like it shifted. The air thickened. The cold concrete beneath me suddenly felt like the floor of a vault. I stared at the shapes again, the flashlight reflecting off the smooth contours barely visible through the fabric. My husband had created a sanctuary in secret, and I was only now stepping inside. I stood up slowly, knees trembling, and walked toward the largest shape. My hand hovered over the cover, afraid of what lifting it would mean, afraid of knowing how much my husband had hidden and why. The letter in my other hand continued. "But before you uncover anything, turn the lights on. You deserve to see everything clearly." My heart skipped. I looked at the wall, the light switch, the envelope taped beside it. My fingers touched the switch hesitantly. What if it didn't work? What if this was all a misunderstanding and everything under the covers was worthless junk? I took a breath and flicked the switch. A soft electrical hum rolled through the ceiling, and then the garage flooded with bright, white light. Not harsh industrial bulbs, no buzzing fluorescence, but long strips of clean LED lighting installed with precision. The whole room illuminated like an art gallery. My breath left me in one long, stunned exhale. The floor was coated in gray epoxy, spotless, gleaming. The walls had been reinforced and painted. There was a climate control unit discreetly humming in the corner. This wasn't a garage. This was a curated space, a vault, a private museum. My gaze snapped to the objects under the covers. Now bathed in full light, their shapes were unmistakable, sleek, aerodynamic, elegant. These weren't appliances or furniture. These were vehicles, beautiful ones, the kind restored with devotion, kept spotless, maintained like treasures. My throat tightened as my flashlight clattered to the floor. I didn't need the beam anymore. I reached with trembling hands and pinched the edge of the first cover. The fabric was soft, tailored, high quality. It slid smoothly as I pulled it back inch by inch, revealing a curved bumper, polished to a mirror shine. I froze. I didn't even know the exact model. My husband had always been the one with mechanical passion, but even I could recognize craftsmanship when I saw it. This machine was older than me, but looked untouched by time. Lines clean, chrome immaculate, paint flawless, every inch restored, loved, prepared. I stepped back, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. My husband had left me this, hidden it from everyone, created a world inside this forgotten building. And I knew there was more. I forced myself back to the letter. "There's a safe," the next lines read. "Behind your favorite photo of us, you'll know the combination." My heart lurched into my throat. I scanned the walls, and there it was. A framed picture of the two of us on our 30th anniversary, smiling on a boardwalk, sunlight hitting his gray hair. Behind that frame, a safe. My hands fumbled as I lifted the photo from its hook. A keypad safe was recessed behind it, pristine, untouched. I typed the combination without thinking. Our wedding date. The safe clicked. I pulled the door open, and what I found inside stole the last breath from my lungs. Inside the safe, neatly arranged as if curated by steady, loving hands, were several small leather-bound folders stacked in perfect alignment. Not dusty, not old, not forgotten, fresh, crisp, and intentional. My breath shuddered as I reached for the first one. It was heavier than it looked, the cover smooth beneath my fingertips. I opened it slowly, expecting maybe a few insurance papers, maybe a deed to some tiny plot of land. But what stared back at me was nothing like that. Inside were certificates of ownership, official, embossed, meticulously kept. Each one belonged to one of the vehicles covered in the garage, and the valuations listed. I felt my knees wobble. One restored classic worth more than most houses. Another labeled Heritage Collection Grade. A third marked as museum condition. My husband, had left me a fortune. Not in bank accounts, not in penthouse equity, but in history, in metal, in art, in something Jonathan would never think to value, something that couldn't be funneled into flashy renovations or status games, something that required patience, respect, and heart. I closed the folder carefully, holding it to my chest as warmth spread through me, an anchor in the wreckage of the last few days. But before I could gather myself, something else in the safe caught my eye. A small velvet pouch sat in the corner, tied with a silver drawstring. It looked almost ceremonial. I hesitated before picking it up, feeling the soft weight inside shift gently. When I loosened the string and peeked inside, my breath hitched. Jewelry not flashy or gaudy, but intimate. A gold bracelet I'd lost years ago and assumed had fallen down a drain. A pair of pearl earrings he'd given me on our 5th anniversary. And a thin necklace with a tiny charm shaped like a compass, the one he'd bought when we were young and broke, the one he'd said would always point us home. It's to say, my vision blurred instantly, tears spilling before I could stop them. He had kept these, protected them, hidden them away not because they lacked value, but because they mattered to us, because they were pieces of our life before money complicated everything. I pressed the pouch to my heart, overwhelmed by the realization that even in the silence of his illness, even while preparing for the end, he had been thinking of me, of us. With trembling hands, I reached for the second folder in the safe. This one was slimmer, sealed with a paper band labeled in his handwriting, "Read when you're ready." I didn't feel ready, not even close, but something inside me insisted that I had to know. I slid the band off and unfolded the document. It wasn't a letter. It was a trust, an entire legal structure listing properties, investments, and long-term accounts, all in my name. My breath stilled. There were addresses I didn't recognize, several rental units, a small cottage in a coastal town, a few undeveloped lots, and accounts that quietly accumulated over years. None of this had ever been discussed. None of it appeared in the will, because Jonathan wasn't meant to know any of it existed. The realization hit like a shockwave. My husband had split his legacy in two, the visible world for Jonathan and the real world for me. He had hidden my share behind layers of secrecy to protect it. To protect me, I sank onto a nearby stool, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I was reading. My eyes scanned the trust again and again, searching for any sign this was a mistake, but there it was, plain as day, my name, repeated throughout dozens of official entries. My financial future secured in documents my son never knew existed. As I sat there, the hum of the climate control unit filled the space, steady and calm, almost comforting. The garage didn't feel cold anymore. It felt deliberate, built for me, chosen for me, a sanctuary disguised as a forgotten structure. I inhaled deeply, letting the air settle into my lungs, grounding me. But the letter wasn't finished. The last page lay folded at the bottom of the safe, the handwriting unmistakably his. I unfolded it carefully. "My love," he wrote. "I didn't hide things from you because I doubted you. I hid them because I feared what our son was becoming. I feared what greed might push him to do. I hoped I was wrong about him. I prayed for it. But if you're reading this, then you have seen what I saw, and I am so sorry." My throat tightened painfully. The words blurred as tears surged again, but I kept reading, desperate to hear every syllable he had left for me. "You have always been the heart of this family, the one who held us together when life pulled us apart. But hearts are fragile, and I regret every moment I let you carry the weight alone. This place, this inheritance, is my attempt to carry it with you, even after I'm gone. Everything here belongs to you fully, safely, quietly. You don't owe Jonathan explanations. You don't owe anyone anything. Use these gifts to rebuild your life however you choose. Today, the last paragraph shattered me. And if grief feels too heavy, come to the cottage. It's peaceful. The ocean is close. I've arranged everything to be waiting for you. Consider it my last home for us, even if I'm only there in spirit. I'm Sov. I pressed the letter to my face, inhaling the faint smell of paper and ink, pretending for a moment that it was the scent of his shirt, the warmth of his shoulder, the steady presence I'd leaned on for decades. Emotions surged through me in waves: grief, love, anger, confusion, gratitude, and underneath it all, a rising sense of strength I didn't know I still had. When I opened my eyes again, the lights of the garage felt brighter. The shapes under the covers felt less like mysteries and more like promises. And I knew I wasn't done, not even close. There was still one folder left in the safe, a slim, black one tucked into the corner, marked with a single handwritten word: Caldwell. I have a Maymond, the attorney. My pulse jumped. Why would my husband leave something in the safe labeled with the lawyer's name? What had Caldwell been hiding during the reading of the will? What did he know that he didn't tell me? I reached for the folder, swallowed hard, and opened it. And what I saw inside made the room tilt. Inside the black folder labeled Caldwell, the first thing I noticed was a sealed envelope addressed to me, but dated 6 months before my husband died. That alone made my pulse spike. 6 months. He had planned this long before Jonathan even sensed anything was wrong. Beneath the envelope lay a set of printed emails between my husband and attorney Caldwell, highlighted sections, notes in Robert's handwriting, dates scribbled in the margins. Cold, clean proof that nothing about the will reading had been spontaneous. It was choreographed, precise, intentional, a test, a shield, a final act of love disguised as misdirection. I slid the envelope open with shaky fingers. Inside was a shorter letter, sharper, firmer in tone, not soft like the other ones. Susan, it began. If you're reading this, it means Caldwell respected my request. Tell Jonathan nothing. Show compassion, but reveal only the surface. Only you are meant to see the full picture. My breath caught. The next lines explained everything. The will reading was purposely structured to expose our son's behavior under pressure, to separate entitlement from loyalty, to force truth into daylight. Nothing about it was accidental. Our son, he wrote, has become skilled at performing goodness in public, but the heart reveals itself under the weight of inheritance. My throat tightened. My husband had known exactly what sort of man Jonathan had become. I flipped to the printed emails. The first one nearly made me drop the folder entirely. It outlined instructions Caldwell had followed to the letter. Leave the penthouse to Jonathan. Leave the garage to Susan. Act uncomfortable. Let Jonathan reveal himself. Quote, reading it made my skin prickle. I remembered the silence in that attorney's office. The way Caldwell kept adjusting his glasses. The way Jonathan practically vibrated with anticipation. Now I understood every second. And the email went further. It included warnings, concerns, predictions. My husband's words were painfully accurate. Expect Jonathan to express disappointment through anger. Protect Susan from immediate conflict. Encourage her to call me directly afterward. A bitter laugh escaped me. Jonathan hadn't disappointed his father's predictions, he'd exceeded them. And the next page was worse. A printed draft of a restraining order. Not filed, not signed, but prepared. For Jonathan, I felt the air leave my lungs. There was no mistaking the context. The notes in the margins were in my husband's handwriting. He hadn't wanted to believe it would be needed, but he had prepared for the possibility anyway. His notes said, only use if Jonathan threatens her safety or attempts to seize control of property. The sharp sting in my chest was grief mixed with something deeper, a mourning for the son I thought I had raised. A child who had once brought me breakfast in bed to celebrate Mother's Day in the messiest way possible. Now the same man, a lawyer, quietly prepared paperwork against. I pushed the folder closed and pressed my palms to my eyes, breathing through the swirl of emotions. Shock, shame, fear, love, all tangled like fishing line. But another emotion rose above the rest, slow and steady determination. I wasn't a useless old woman. I wasn't disposable. And I wasn't alone. Robert had given me every tool I needed to stand on equal ground. And now, the moment for hiding was almost over. When I finally left the garage and stepped into the cool evening air, something inside me felt different, sharper, clearer. The world around me hummed with the distant noise of traffic, the hum of streetlights, the faint echo of voices from nearby buildings. And somehow, the night didn't feel empty anymore. It felt charged, like something was shifting beneath the surface, like the universe had inhaled and was waiting to exhale. Later that night, at a small diner near the industrial district, my life teetered toward a turning point I didn't expect. I sat in a booth nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee, staring at the documents spread out before me. To anyone else, it would look like a stack of boring paperwork. But to me, it was a map. A roadmap out of fear. A roadmap toward truth. A roadmap toward freedom. I didn't notice the waitress approach until she spoke. "Ma'am, you okay? You've been sitting here a while." "Miss." Her voice was gentle, full of concern. I managed a small smile. "I will be. I'm just finally seeing things clearly." She nodded like she understood more than she should. Maybe she did. As I gathered my things and packed everything back into my bag, my phone buzzed an unknown number. Strange. I hesitated before answering. "Hello? It's not A deep voice responded, calm yet slightly urgent. "Mrs. Campbell? This is Marcus Weatherby. I'm the automotive specialist your husband worked with. I'm Zaventu." My grip tightened around the phone. "Yes. I found your name in his documents. I'm no day. I figured you might. There's something you need to know, something your husband asked me to keep discreet until you were ready." "Aid." My heart jolted. "What is it?" End quote. "It concerns your son." Is to say, my breath stopped. And the garage. Tijuana down, the world seemed to tilt again. Marcus hesitated before speaking the next words. "We need to meet. Tomorrow. In public. Somewhere safe." End quote. A cold chill swept through me, crawling up the back of my neck. "Safe? Safe from what?" End quote. His answer came softly. "Mrs. Campbell, your husband didn't just build that garage for storage. He built it to protect something, and someone is looking for it now." Who?" I whispered. But Marcus didn't answer that. He only said, "Meet me at 10 a.m. at the cafe on Harbor Street. And please don't tell your son where you are." To Maine. The call ended. My hand trembled as I set the phone down. A new open loop cracked wide open. Someone besides Jonathan wanted what was in that garage. Someone who already knew too much. And tomorrow, I would learn the truth. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, Marcus's words replayed like a warning siren buried inside my chest. "Someone is looking for it now." End quote. Not something, someone. By dawn, my nerves were stretched thin, but I forced myself to breathe, to move, to prepare. I reminded myself that Robert had trusted this man, trusted him enough to leave his name in the safe, trusted him enough to write about him with respect. So whatever I was about to learn, it mattered. At exactly 9:52 a.m., I parked a block from the cafe on Harbor Street. It was a quiet waterfront spot, the kind with outdoor seating and small chalkboard signs offering pastries. Locals lingered over newspapers. A few tourists wandered by with cameras. Ordinary, normal, safe. I walked slowly, scanning faces the way Marcus had warned me to. Every glance felt heavier than it should, like eyes were staying on me a second too long. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I wasn't. Marcus was already there. He stood near the railing, overlooking the marina, tall, silver-haired, dressed in a tweed jacket that made him look like a retired professor. He spotted me and raised a hand, motioning toward the seat across from him. His smile was polite, but his eyes held a tension I couldn't ignore. "Mrs. Campbell," he greeted. "Thank you for coming. He want my later. Please, call me Susan," I said, lowering myself onto the metal chair. "And tell me why you insisted we meet in public." Marcus folded his hands. "Because your husband made me promise something, and because I believe someone may be watching the garage. The words dropped like a stone into the pit of my stomach. "Watching it?" I whispered. He nodded. "A few days ago, A man came to my workshop asking questions. Too many questions. He knew Robert owned classic cars. He knew they were rare, but he acted like he knew more than he should, like he'd heard rumors about hidden investments. He asked if the cars were still in that old industrial location. Oak. My pulse jumped. How would he know anything about that? 83. That, Marcus said quietly, is what we need to figure out. I have. For a moment, the sounds around us blurred the clinking of dishes, the murmur of conversations, the distant call of gulls circling the marina. Then his words cut through the noise. Susan, your husband was approached several times over the last few years by people trying to buy those cars. Some of them were collectors, some were investors, but one was persistent in a way that didn't feel legitimate. I reeked. A chill swept up my spine. Persistent how? A2IM. He tried to contact Robert at home. Showed up once at the garage before security features were installed. Called my office several times using different names. And from what I can tell, Marcus lowered his voice. He's back. Fear tightened around my ribs like a vice. But underneath it, anger flickered too. Anger that people felt entitled to something my husband had poured so much into. Do you know who he is? I asked. Marcus shook his head. Not yet. But he's not working alone. That much is clear. Quote, I leaned back, letting the truth sink into me slowly, carefully, like lowering myself into cold water. So you think, I said quietly, that this man is watching the property now? Due ways. Marcus nodded. I've driven by twice in the last week. Each time, a dark SUV was parked across the street. Same vehicle, same position. No one ever got out. But the timing. He paused, choosing his words. The timing lines up with your husband's passing, and with the will becoming public. End quote. My breath froze. You think someone was waiting for Robert to die? End quote. Yes. In wait. And now that Jonathan has the penthouse, they assume, he continued softly, that anything valuable left in that garage is unguarded. End quote. A bitter laugh escaped me. Jonathan didn't even want the garage. Kay did. Marcus studied me. Exactly. Which would make you the vulnerable one, the one least likely, at least in their minds, to understand what she's holding. Activerse. I exhaled shakily, letting reality settle around me like dust. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thin folder, sliding it across the table. Your husband asked me to give this to you when you found the garage. It contains appraisals, insurance data, restoration notes, and a confidential report about the man I mentioned. I didn't include everything, but enough to keep you informed. My fingers hovered over the folder. Did Robert know how dangerous this person was? Is problem. Marcus hesitated. He suspected. Enough to take precautions. Enough to keep you out of it until he was gone. To enter. My throat tightened painfully. Why didn't he tell me while he was alive? 295. Marcus's voice softened. To protect you. And because he hoped Jonathan might soften before any of this came to light. And a long silence stretched between us. Then I asked the question that had been burning in the back of my mind since yesterday. Marcus, what exactly do these men want? The cars? The documents? The trust? He looked directly at me, unblinking. They want whatever they can turn into fast money. And those cars? They're worth millions. To the wrong people, that's fuel, fire. Is Whitfree one? My hands trembled around the folder. So what do I do now? If you Cass, he sat back, assessing me with a level of seriousness I wasn't prepared for. You follow the plan your husband left, step by step, and the next step is this. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small, silver key on the table, a different key from the one I used to open the garage. What is this? I whispered. Marcus's face hardened. The key to a second storage unit. One your husband kept completely off the books. I'm quowed. My eyes widened. I didn't know there was another. It's Kreisdevent. No one knew, he said. Except me. And Robert. He held my gaze. And now, you. Also. For a moment, the world seemed to still, like the air stopped moving, like time itself took a breath. What's inside? End quote. His answer came out barely above a murmur. Evidence. Documents. And one item worth more than all 3 cars combined. I know thing. My heart pounded. Why didn't Robert tell me? May Cruz. Because if Jonathan or the wrong people found it first, Marcus swallowed hard. It could ruin everything. Is well to. The cafe noise faded into nothing. Only one question remained in my mind, sharp as a blade. Marcus, what exactly did my husband hide in that second unit? Azrael did. He exhaled slowly, as if preparing himself. A prototype, he said. A one-of-one vehicle. A piece of automotive history that disappeared decades ago. Something collectors and criminals would kill to obtain. Is, my God, end quote. And Susan, he added, leaning forward. Your husband didn't want you going there alone. Example. My heart pounded so loudly it filled my ears. Whatever came next would change everything. The key lay on the table between us, small, silver, impossibly heavy with meaning. I stared at it so long the sunlight shifted across it, turning its edges gold. My husband had hidden 3 priceless cars in the garage, and still there was something bigger, something he kept so secret even the attorney didn't know. A second unit, a prototype people would kill to obtain. Marcus watched my expression carefully. We shouldn't wait long, he said. The longer that unit stays untouched, the more risk. On create. I swallowed hard. Risk from who? The same man who watched the garage? I was. He nodded once. If he knows about the cars, he may know about the second unit. And the moment he realizes you're the beneficiary, he'll come looking for me. I finished quietly. Marcus didn't deny it. That was enough to make my palms sweat. I wasn't helpless, but I also wasn't naive. I was a 68-year-old widow, not some action heroine who could fend off thieves and crooks. And yet, my husband had believed I could handle this, believed in my strength, believed I could take the next steps. I wouldn't dishonor that faith. When do we go? I asked. Now, Marcus said. Before anyone else notices unusual movement around the garage. Undressed. We left separately, just as he instructed. He walked to an older sedan parked at the curb, not flashy, not traceable, not noticeable. I followed in my less-than-new car, keeping 3 vehicles behind him. My heart beat in hard, uneven thumps the entire drive. The city blurred past warehouses, storage yards, old rail lines, but my mind barely registered anything except the pulsing truth. My husband hid something massive, and someone else wants it. The second storage facility wasn't in an obvious place. Marcus led me to a rundown industrial zone, several miles from the garage. Its exterior looked abandoned, peeling paint, cracked pavement, a rusted gate half hanging off its hinges. Nothing about it suggested treasures worth millions were hidden inside, which, I realized, was exactly the point. Marcus parked, scanned the street twice, then motioned me over. This is it, he murmured. Your husband rented this unit under a shell name. Paid in cash, never visited during business hours, no digital footprint. I Falavin so my why. That sounds more like a spy than a retired businessman, I whispered. He smiled sadly. Grief makes men do strange things. But protecting loved ones? That makes them even stranger. We approached the row of units. The one Marcus pointed to, Unit 17, looked no different from the others. A dented roll-up door, faded numbering, cobwebs clinging to the corners. Go ahead, Marcus said softly. It should be you. I welted about. My hand shook as I slid the key into the lock. It clicked easily, too easily, as if it had been opened recently. I froze. Marcus, I whispered. This lock, it's loose. End quote. He stiffened instantly. Step behind me. It's Formond. But before I could move, a sound echoed from inside the unit, a metallic thud, followed by a dragging scrape. Then, silence. My breath caught painfully in my chest. There's someone inside, I mouthed. Marcus motioned for me to stay still. He moved forward slowly, stepping to the side of the door, keeping his body angled. His voice was barely a whisper. On 3. Step back. We're not opening it fully, just enough to see. I know 20 U's. My throat tightened. Marcus, is this safe? Doze. No, he said truthfully. But necessary. I have could not ruble. He counted silently. 1, 2, 3, and pulled the door up just enough for sunlight to spill inside. Dust drifted through the beam like tiny gold flecks. I leaned forward slightly, peering into the sliver of space. At first, I saw nothing, just shadows. stacks of covered items, shelves, a canvas tarp hanging off something large in the back. Then a shape moved. A human silhouette darted deeper into the darkness. My stomach lurched. Marcus dropped the door instantly, letting it slam shut with a deafening metallic crash. "Get to the car," he said. Now, to hide, I stumbled backward, adrenaline surging through me like a wave of electricity. "What did you see?" I gasped. "Someone who didn't expect us," he said, scanning the area again. "Which means we're out of time." Before I could respond, a loud banging erupted from inside the unit, as if someone was throwing their weight against the metal door. I jumped, heart slamming against my ribs. "Marcus, move," he barked. We hurried back toward the cars, but halfway there, Marcus stopped abruptly, his jaw clenched. "Oh no." I followed his gaze and felt the blood drain from my face. A black SUV was parked across the street. The same kind he had described. The same kind Jonathan mentioned in passing once. The same kind I had seen near the garage days ago. Its windows were tinted. Its engine was running. And whoever sat inside was watching us. Marcus exhaled sharply. "Don't look at them. Just get in your car. Drive straight back to the cottage. Lock the doors. Don't answer unknown numbers." "Marcus, what about you?" "Isn't. I'll lead them away," he said simply. "They want me just as much as the unit. I'm the only link between your husband and these cars." And will. Everything inside me rebelled. "I can't let you. You have to," he said firmly. "Your husband trusted you to finish what he started. Now you must trust me." "I am." The SUV's brakes squeaked softly as it began creeping forward. Fear strangled my next breath. "Marcus, please." He squeezed my hand before stepping back. "Go. I'll call once I know you're safe." "It's very $100. I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want to abandon anyone, but something primal inside me whispered that one wrong move could unravel everything. So I obeyed. I climbed into my car, turned the key with trembling fingers, and pulled away from the curb. In my rearview mirror, the SUV shifted lanes following Marcus instead of me. He had done it. He had put himself between me and danger. The tears didn't fall until I was 3 miles away, shaking hands gripping the wheel, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Only when I finally reached the cottage doors locked, blinds drawn, did I understand the true weight of my situation. My husband hadn't left me a fortune. He'd left me a war. And now, the enemy knew I was here. The cottage had always felt safe to me. Warm light, soft ocean breeze, wooden floors that creaked gently like they were whispering welcome. But that afternoon, when I hurried inside and locked the door behind me, it felt different. Smaller, tighter, like the walls knew something I didn't. My hands trembled as I closed the curtains and double-checked the locks, my breath catching every time a car rolled past outside. I had been followed, maybe not directly, maybe not all the way here, but someone wanted what my husband hid. And now, they knew I existed. I sank onto the couch, pressing my palms against my knees to steady myself. Marcus hadn't called. Not yet. Every second without an update built a weight in my chest so heavy I could barely inhale. I replayed the scene at the storage unit again, and again the shadow inside, the slamming metal, the SUV creeping forward, the way Marcus told me to run. I hated that feeling, that helplessness, that fear of losing another person I cared about. I'd already buried my husband. I wasn't ready to bury someone else. Minutes bled into hours. The afternoon light faded into pale gold, then muted blue, then a deep, quiet darkness that made every window feel like an eye staring in. When my phone finally buzzed, I jumped so hard, the device slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I scrambled for it, praying, begging that it was Marcus. It wasn't. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't expected. Jonathan. My stomach flipped. Not now. Not tonight. Not like this. I let it ring until it stopped. The silence afterward was almost worse, like the calm right before a storm breaks open. Then the phone buzzed again, this time a text. "Mom, I know about the second unit. Call me back. If you haven't raid." I froze. A cold prickle spread over my skin, crawling up my arms and down my spine. How? How could he know? Had he followed me? Had someone contacted him? Had he been working with the man watching the garage? My heart hammered. A part of me didn't want to believe Jonathan was involved. He hadn't always been cruel, just thoughtless, entitled, too wrapped in his own world to see the hurt he caused. But lately, his behavior made me wonder which version of him was real. I didn't respond. Not yet. Before I could think further, another message appeared. I'm driving down. We need to talk. Don't ignore me. Panic punched through my chest. No, I whispered. Not tonight. It's Deverbont. I wasn't ready for him. Not when danger already pressed against my life from another direction. Not when I didn't know who was an enemy and who wasn't. As if sensing my fear, the cottage seemed to settle around me. The waves outside kept their steady rhythm. The old grandfather clock down the hall ticked calmly as always, and then 3 sharp knocks rattled the front door. I froze. Not a friendly knock. Not hesitant. Hard. Direct. Commanding. My pulse skittered wildly. Whoever stood outside wasn't a neighbor, wasn't Margaret, wasn't anyone who loved me. I crept across the living room, staying low, staying silent. Another set of knocks shook the door. Susan? A man's voice called. Mrs. Campbell, we need to speak with you. Aubrey. My breath hitched. Not Marcus. Not Jonathan. This voice was unfamiliar, smooth, confident, practiced. I know you're in there, the man continued. Your car is outside. Your lights were on earlier. We just want to talk. End quote. We. It's a validity. My stomach clenched at the word. I peered through the side window. 2 men, both in dark jackets, both standing too close to the door. One checking his watch like this was a scheduled appointment, the other scanning the street. They didn't look like police. They didn't look like neighbors. They looked like men who didn't take no for an answer. I backed away from the window slowly, careful not to make a sound. My phone buzzed again, another text from Jonathan. Tell them nothing. I'm 20 minutes away. Don't open the door. Brendan. My heart jerked. He knew they were here. And that terrified me more than the men outside. Were they connected to him? Was he helping me? Was he warning me? Or was this all another one of his messes spilling into my life? I crouched near the hallway, gripping my phone, hands shaking as the knocking grew more insistent. Susan? The first man called again. Voice still calm but sharper now. We're not leaving. We know you've accessed the unit. We know you found the documents. We know you have something that belongs to us. I will. Belongs to us. The words slithered into me like poison. Belongs to them? Nothing my husband left me belonged to anyone else. Nothing. Fear twisted into anger, hot, raw, rising through me. I wasn't opening the door. Not to them. Not to anybody. Then the door handle jiggled. I gasped loudly, clapping a hand over my mouth. You need to open this door, the second man growled. Now, in 2024, my pulse pounded so loudly I could barely hear the ocean anymore. A moment later, headlights swept across the front windows. A car pulling up fast, too fast. The men turned. One muttered something under his breath. The other stepped away from the porch. The headlights cut off abruptly. Then a voice, sharp, angry, familiar, shouted from the driveway. Step away from her house. Ooh, Jonathan, my son, standing between me and danger. Something I hadn't expected to see in a long, long time. The 2 men squared off, clearly unbothered by his arrival. One of them even chuckled. Jonathan walked closer, jaw tight, fists clenched, voice low and furious. I'm calling the police. Leave. Now. Isen. The men didn't move. For several seconds, everything held. The cottage, the night, the silence, my breath. Then, slowly, deliberately, the men stepped back. Another time, one murmured, "This isn't over," to One News. They climbed into their SUV and drove off into the dark. I waited until the taillights disappeared before unlocking the door with trembling fingers. Jonathan stood on the porch, chest heaving, eyes hard, and for the first time in months, maybe years, he looked like my son again, not entitled, not dismissive, not cruel, just scared and angry and protective. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and whispered, "Mom, they're after more than the cars. And I think Dad knew they'd come for you. I am." The room spun. My world tilted again. And suddenly, my son and I were on the same side. Jonathan closed the door behind him and locked it, then locked it again, double-checking the bolt as if he didn't trust even steel to keep the world out. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard, rain clinging to his hair and jacket even though the night outside was dry. Fear does that, it drenches a person from the inside out. I watched him, unsure whether to hug him or demand answers. He didn't look like the polished man who once threw me out of my own home. He looked shaken, human. "Mom," he said, turning toward me, voice low and unsteady. "You need to sit down," I asked. "Jonathan, what did you do? Who were those men? It is really." He shook his head sharply. "Just sit, please, I'll explain," to say. I obeyed, lowering myself onto the couch, fingers curling into the fabric to keep them steady. Jonathan paced in front of me, running a hand through his hair again and again until it stood on end. "I didn't know they'd come here," he muttered. "I swear, I didn't think they'd find you so fast." It signed. A cold, heavy dread settled over my ribs. "So you do know them?" He froze. Then he exhaled long, defeated. "I know of them. Not personally, not by choice. But, yes, I'm the reason they're in this." End quote. My breath left me in a quiet, cracked whisper. "Jonathan, what did you do?" Ardine. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, head bowed like a child preparing for punishment. "When Dad died," he began, "I was drowning. The penthouse wasn't the win I made it look like. I was overextended. Debts, investments collapsing, loans. He laughed bitterly. "I was so deep I couldn't even see the surface anymore. It's Formant." I swallowed. "Why didn't you tell me?" End quote. He lifted his head, pain flashing in his eyes. "Because I was ashamed. Because I wanted to be the son Dad could rely on. Because I wanted to prove something to him, to myself." He clenched his fists. "When I found out Dad left you that garage, I thought maybe if there was anything in it worth selling, I could convince you to help me. They're not wrecker." My heart twisted painfully. "So the first thing you did was try to take it?" I did. His eyes filled not with tears, but with regret so heavy it silenced me. I was wrong. I was angry. I wasn't thinking. I'm not proud of who I was back then. I have a Zias. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Not while he finally peeled his layers back like this. "When I looked into Dad's finances," Jonathan continued, "I came across a note, a line in an old draft file, something referencing a secondary asset vault. It didn't say where, didn't say what, but it mentioned something about acquisition risk. I didn't know what that meant." He rubbed his forehead. "So I made a mistake. A big one. I asked someone I shouldn't have for help." Everything inside me tightened. "Jonathan, who?" "Novertanian," he hesitated. "A guy named Lawrence. He's a broker, deals in rare things. He helped a friend of mine offload some assets once. I thought he could help me figure out what Dad was hiding. I thought he'd just run a search or pull some property records." 12 no's. He shook his head, but he knew more than he should have. Too much. When I mentioned a garage and a second unit, his whole face changed. "I have so video." Jonathan looked at me, voice barely above a whisper. "He told me your husband, my father, was sitting on something people had searched for years. Something they'd pay millions for. Something people might kill over." My pulse thudded. "So you told him more?" "Beezer, too, I know." Jonathan looked physically ill. "Yes, and the second I did, I knew I shouldn't have." Is nodded. He covered his face with both hands. "I just needed answers. I didn't think he'd send people. I didn't know he'd track you. I swear to you, Mom, I never meant for any of this." I stared at him. My son, the boy I raised, the man who'd wounded me, the man now sitting in front of me with his soul cracked open. And in that moment, I felt two truths collide. He had put me in danger, but he was terrified, and he came here to protect me. "What exactly were those men after?" I asked. "Lawrence's men?" Jonathan's voice dropped. "They want the prototype. Whatever Dad hid, they're convinced it's in the second unit or that you know where it is now. Is not Raiders." My breath hitched. "Jonathan, I haven't even seen it. We never opened the unit fully. If you write to and rebrand." He blinked, stunned. "You went there?" "In the noon arrestine." I nodded slowly. "Marcus took me. We saw someone inside, but we didn't open it. We left when we saw the SUV." Is nodded be hard. Jonathan exhaled so deeply his shoulders sagged. "Thank God." 80. Silence wrapped the room for a few seconds before he finally whispered, "Mom, I think Dad knew this could happen, too. I shook my head. No. He was protecting assets, yes. Protecting me from you, maybe. But this? Men breaking into storage units? Following people? Threatening a 6-8-year-old widow? He couldn't have predicted that. I fios. Jonathan held my gaze. He did. Or at least, he suspected someone dangerous was circling the edges. Is twice Pete. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket, crumpled, worn, clearly read over and over. I found this yesterday in Dad's old study at the penthouse. It was hidden under the drawer lining. I didn't understand it until those men showed up at your door. If you have now. He handed it to me with trembling fingers. It was a handwritten list in Robert's familiar, neat lettering. If anything happens to me, protect Susan. Do not trust outside brokers. Avoid Lawrence. Watch for surveillance. Call Marcus first. Do not access Unit 17 alone. The prototype must remain hidden until safe transfer is possible. Tell Susan everything, only when absolutely necessary. My vision blurred. He knew, my husband knew, about Lawrence, about danger, about everything. And he didn't tell me because he thought I'd panic, or because he didn't want me carrying the weight while he was dying. Jonathan's voice broke the silence. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was stepping into, but now that I do, I'm here. I'll fix this. I'll keep you safe. Whatever Dad was protecting, whatever he left behind, we're going to handle it together. It's not for goes end. I looked at him, really looked. At the fear, the guilt, the determination. And for the first time since Robert's death, the wall between us cracked just enough for something gentle to slip through. But the truth still stood like a shadow behind him. Those men would be back, and the real war my husband feared was only beginning. Jonathan sat across from me, watching my reaction as I reread my husband's hidden note. I traced each line with my fingertip like I was touching Robert's voice, his warnings, his care, his fear. My throat tightened. He knew danger circled around these assets. He knew Jonathan might stumble into the wrong hands. He knew someone named Lawrence was more than a casual threat. What my husband didn't know was that all of it would collide on a night when I stood alone in a cottage with two strangers at my door. Jonathan leaned forward. Mom, listen to me. We don't have much time. Lawrence won't give up. And now that his men know where you live, he let out a shaky breath. They'll come back. They always do. The words sank into my bones like cold rain. But beneath the fear, something steadier rose resolve. So what do we do? I asked. Jonathan swallowed. We finish what Dad started. We see what's in that second unit before anyone else gets there. Tenet. I hesitated. And the man inside? The one Marcus and I heard? If it's minding, he's probably one of Lawrence's scouts, Jonathan said grimly. Dad's note makes it clear. Unit 17 can't stay hidden forever. It's Senbul in way. Before I could respond, headlights swept across the window, slow, deliberate, crawling. My heart jolted. Jonathan stood instantly, shoulders squared. Mom, he whispered, stay back. Together, we peered through the side curtain. Not an SUV this time. A small sedan. Old. Unremarkable. But the silhouette behind the wheel made my breath catch. Marcus. Jonathan hurried to the door and threw it open. Marcus! He staggered inside, leaning heavily against the frame, his breathing sharp and uneven. Sweat beaded his forehead. His jacket was scuffed, like someone had grabbed him. I'm fine, he insisted, though the tremor in his voice said otherwise. But they followed me halfway to the coast. I had to lose them through back roads. I was not off to a dod. I stepped toward him. Marcus, what happened? He looked between us, my worried eyes, Jonathan's tense posture. They know, he said. Lawrence's people know you visited the second unit. I know do. Jonathan cursed under his breath. We figured that out. If you do, Marcus shook his head. No, they know more than that. They know what's inside, end quote. Silence dropped like a stone. Jonathan's voice was barely a breath. How? No one's seen it, not even you. Tenelvor. Marcus sat on the armchair, rubbing his temples, because the man inside the unit wasn't a scout. He was a thief, and he triggered one of Robert's alarms when he tried to lift the tarp. I got the alert 5 minutes before I met your mother yesterday. That's why I rushed out. 8-9. I sank onto the couch. He opened the tarp. AT's eye. Not fully, Marcus said, but enough to understand what he was looking at. Quote, 72 hours of ventard. My pulse hammered. And what exactly did he see? Is mighting I us. Marcus exchanged a heavy look with Jonathan. Then he said the words that made the room tilt. A prototype GT Vesper 1. All far. Jonathan's eyes widened. That's impossible. That model was never released. Only sketches exist. Quote, Marcus nodded. Your father spent a decade searching the world for it. He found it, restored it quietly, hid it where no one would suspect. I know. My voice cracked. And now someone else is hunting it. Zero's eye. Marcus leaned forward. This isn't just a rare vehicle. It's a ghost. A legend. One that collectors, dangerous collectors, would pay anything for. Your father didn't trust the industry. He didn't trust the bidders, so he hid it. Not to sell, but to protect. Everyone, I shook my head slowly. Protect from who? I know. Marcus pinned me with a somber look. From Lawrence's employers. Jonathan stiffened. You mean those men weren't acting alone? Is problem. No, Marcus said. Lawrence works for a private group, very wealthy, very discreet, very ruthless. They've been after the Vesper for years, and now that they know it exists, he exhaled. They won't stop. Eyed Cass. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the steady ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, like a countdown. Finally, Jonathan broke the silence. We need to move it. Continue comin'. Marcus nodded. Tonight, before they regroup. End quote. Jonathan looked at me. Mom, you're coming with us. You're the legal owner. You need to be present to authorize any transfer. My pulse surged. Tonight? In the dark? When they're watching? Idea. Jonathan knelt in front of me, his hands steadying my trembling ones. Mom, Dad trusted you with this. Trusted you more than anyone. And we can't let his life's work fall into the wrong hands. 2. I have died. Something in his gaze, fear, yes, but also responsibility pulled at my heart. He was still my son, still capable of being good, capable of stepping up. I nodded slowly. Okay, I'm coming. We left in 2 cars, Marcus leading, Jonathan behind me. The roads were empty, the night thick with fog rolling in from the ocean. Every set of headlights in the distance made my muscles tighten. Every dark alley felt like a pair of watching eyes. Marcus took a winding route, switching streets often, slowing at corners, checking mirrors constantly. They're not tailing us, he assured through the phone speaker. We're clear. To that, no. Clear. A fragile word. A temporary word. When we reached the storage facility, the old gate groaned as we slipped inside. The moon hung low, casting long, eerie shadows across the cracked pavement. The row of units felt like silent witnesses, metal doors gleaming in the dim light, hiding secrets behind each one. We approached Unit 17. The dented roll-up door looked the same, but something felt different, colder. Jonathan, Marcus whispered. Check the lock. Now. He crouched, ran his fingers along the bottom latch, then his breath caught. It's been tampered with. Eve. Marcus drew in a tight breath. Get ready. When the door goes up, keep behind me. 9. My heart pounded as Jonathan positioned himself beside me. Marcus gripped the handle. 1, 2, 3. It's 5. The door rolled up with a screech, and the smell of oil and dust hit my nose. We stepped inside, the massive tarp still draped over something large and angular in the center of the unit. But everything else was wrong. Shelves had been ransacked, boxes overturned, documents scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. Someone's been through here, Jonathan muttered. Marcus moved toward the tarp. And not long ago, and Olimers. Suddenly, a faint metallic click echoed from deep inside the unit. A click that didn't belong. A click that froze every drop of blood in my body. Jonathan stepped in front of me instantly. Marcus whispered, Stay still. Is Bredavor. Is a Prens Prisend. Then a voice from the shadows answered the silence. A calm, cold voice I didn't recognize. Looking for something? Is no avisited. The darkness shifted. A figure stepped forward, and the truth I'd been afraid of became real. We weren't alone. The figure stepped out from the shadows with the quiet confidence of someone who had already decided the outcome of the night. He wasn't large, not physically intimidating, but there was something far more dangerous in the way he moved, controlled, measured, predatory. His suit was dark, tailored, spotless, despite the dusty unit. When he finally came into the thin beam of Marcus's flashlight, I saw his eyes, sharp, calculating, too calm for a man caught breaking into a storage unit. He tilted his head slightly, almost amused. "You must be Susan." Reveille Long. My name in his mouth felt wrong, violated. Jonathan stepped in front of me, muscles tensed. "Who are you?" "I." The man smiled mildly. "Someone who expected your mother to be smarter. When people inherit assets they don't understand, they tend to make poor choices, like bringing company." 80. Jonathan's fists clenched. "Stay away from her." "I know." The man glanced at Marcus. "And you must be the mechanic, the loyal one, the one Robert trusted." "Over one." His gaze shifted back to me. "But he never told you the full story, did he?" To got it back, something cold clamped around my spine. "Robert trusted who he needed to," Marcus said sharply. "And you're trespassing. This is a federal crime." "Where?" The man chuckled softly. "Spare me the lecture. We all know you won't call the police. If they get involved, they seize everything until the investigation clears. And none of you want that, too." He was right, and he knew he was right. Jonathan took a stiff step forward. "Lawrence, 12. The man gave a slight nod, barely perceptible, but enough. "Lawrence." The name, written in my husband's warnings. The man Jonathan went to for help. Rabid. The one whose employees showed up at my home. I felt sick. Lawrence clasped his hands casually behind his back. "You should have come to me sooner, Jonathan. It would have saved us all time. Your father trusted the wrong people to protect the Vesper One. You're all in over your heads. Just hand it over, if you want." Jonathan snarled. "It's not yours, is." Lawrence shrugged. "Ownership is just paperwork. Value is what matters." Viri Torzov. The air in the unit grew tight, suffocating. Marcus stepped closer to the tarp. "You're not getting anywhere near this car." "I go." Lawrence's smile thinned. "Oh, Marcus, still playing guard dog? You think Robert didn't tell me about you? You were his perfect little accomplice, the restoration genius, the keeper of secrets." Iris Sty. Marcus's jaw locked. "I never worked with you." "Noser." "No," Lawrence said. "But you did work against me. If it has daughters." Jonathan turned, eyes wide. "Marcus?" "Way." Marcus didn't answer. Lawrence walked slowly around the tarp, fingertips brushing the canvas like he was greeting an old friend. "This machine," he murmured, "was never meant to disappear. It was meant to be revealed, exhibited, sold to the highest bidder. But your husband, he stole it. Or at least, he kept it from those who had legitimate claim." "It's 7. My voice broke. "You're lying." "I failed it, prating Mary. I panned our rended I bran." He turned toward me, surprised I'd spoken. "You think your husband was perfect?" he asked softly. "He was desperate. When he found the Vesper One, he knew what it meant. But he didn't have the funds to acquire it legally. He cut corners, he made deals, and he ran before honoring them." "Oh, no," I whispered, shaking my head. "Robert wouldn't." "Everyone does desperate things in their last years," Lawrence said. "Illness changes men. Fear changes men. Legacy changes men." Turney 1. Marcus finally exploded. "Don't you dare rewrite what happened. Robert saved that car. He didn't steal anything. He protected it because he found out who your employers really were." "I have tonight." Lawrence raised a brow. "My employers? You mean the collectors who wanted to make it public? The men willing to pay Robert enough to secure his family's future?" "When these crating of thatted," he nodded at me. "He could have given you everything, but his pride got in the way." "Even." Jonathan's voice came out ragged. "You're twisting it. I have no savin'." Lawrence only smiled. Then he stepped closer, too close, and I instinctively stepped back, hitting a shelf. "Susan," he said gently, "you don't need to be part of this conflict. You're older. You don't need danger. You don't need stress. You need comfort in your final years." I not rose. My blood turned to ice. "I can offer that. Give me the car, and you walk away with more money than you'll ever spend. It is no yours for, Jonathan snapped. Don't talk to her like that. Why not? Lawrence murmured. She's the only legal obstacle now that Robert is gone. Then he reached into his jacket. Marcus grabbed my arm and yanked me behind him. Jonathan stepped forward, ready to fight. But Lawrence only pulled out a document. Let's be civilized, he said, unfolding it. A transfer of ownership. Sign, and this all ends. Action. No, I said. My voice cracked, but the word came out with steel in it. No, my husband entrusted this to me. Not you. Lawrence studied me quietly, then sighed. Fine. I didn't come here hoping you'd be cooperative anyway. I know. He snapped his fingers. A second figure moved in the corner, someone neither Marcus nor I had seen. A shadow peeling itself from the darkness, a man taller than Lawrence, wearing gloves, stepping toward the tarp. Jonathan lunged, but the man raised a metal rod. Marcus grabbed Jonathan. I screamed. The man hooked the rod under the tarp and ripped it away. The fabric crashed to the ground, and there it was, the Vesper 1, silver, seamless, sculpted like a living thing. Its curves were poetry. Its frame whispered power. A machine from a different era, a different world. Beautiful, legendary, too perfect for reality. Even Lawrence paused, breath hitching. There, he whispered. There she is. Dawn. I felt my knees buckle. My husband had restored this. For me, for us, for our future. Lawrence raised a hand. Take it. Is not with. The man stepped toward the driver's door. Marcus shouted, Stop! More. Jonathan rushed forward. The intruder shoved him back. Chaos erupted. Metal clattered. My scream tore the air. And then, a loud, echoing bang froze us all. Not a gunshot. A door slam. From behind us, someone else had entered the unit. Someone whose silhouette stood tall in the doorway. And when he stepped into the light, my heart stopped. The silhouette at the doorway stood impossibly still, blocking the only exit, framed by the thin glow of the hallway lights. Lawrence stiffened. His two men stopped moving. Even Jonathan and Marcus froze as the figure stepped inside slowly, deliberately, as if he had walked into a boardroom instead of a confrontation in a storage unit. When the face finally emerged from shadow, my stomach lurched. I knew him, not personally, but from photos, newspaper articles, business magazines. He was Bennett Shore, a billionaire industrial investor, and the man rumored to have been obsessed with the Vesper 1 for over a decade. Lawrence's expression soured. You weren't supposed to come in person. ×2. Bennett Shore ignored him completely, his cold blue eyes scanning the room, taking stock of everyone and everything with the detachment of a man appraising an art piece he already owned. Then his gaze stopped on me. You must be Susan Campbell, he said, his tone polite but hollow. My condolences on your husband's passing. End quote. My blood chilled. His voice was calm, too calm, predatory in its gentleness. Jonathan stepped in front of me. Get out. End quote. Design. Bennett didn't even glance at my son. Instead, he stepped closer to the Vesper 1, circling it with reverence. It's more beautiful than the sketches suggested, he murmured. Your husband did excellent work. Better than anyone could have hoped. And friend. His fingers hovered an inch above the gleaming silver body. He restored history. Well, Cetrus. Marcus's voice was low and fierce. He restored it to protect it, not to give it to you, to will. At this, Bennett finally turned toward Marcus, expression unreadable. He owed me this car. 18. No, Marcus shot back. He owed you nothing. You tried to force him into a deal he never agreed to. Dadov. Bennett's lips twitched into something resembling amusement. Your husband took something my clients invested in, something that belonged to them, and he hid it. Hades. His eyes flashed with a quiet threat. I intend to correct that. It's possible. Jonathan stepped forward. He didn't steal anything from you. I do. Bennett didn't flinch. Maybe not from me directly, but from the people I represent? Yes. And those people, he added softly, are not patient. It's really where. The storage unit felt smaller by the second, the walls closing in, the air thick with tension, every person bracing for the inevitable. Bennett clasped his hands behind his back. Here's how this will go, he said. Susan signs the transfer. Lawrence's men move the car, and no one gets hurt. Lection, he paused. I don't want violence, truly. But I will do what is necessary. Jonathan barked out a humorless laugh. You think she's going to sign away something my dad died protecting? Even Fievel's fines. Bennett studied him with mild annoyance. Your father didn't die because of this, but others might. I have too, he said it gently, like offering a weather report, and that made it more terrifying. Marcus raised his voice. You can't intimidate her into signing. I've way. Bennett's smile returned, thin and sharp. Intimidation? No, I prefer incentives. I ride. He pulled a folder from his coat and tossed it onto the floor near me. The papers spilled out legal documents, contracts, valuations. This is a purchase agreement, he said. $9 million. Tax-free. Immediate transfer. It is round at. He took a step closer. I'm offering you freedom, Susan. Security. Peace. Afterus. My voice trembled. This isn't about money. Too. Bennett's expression hardened. Everything is about money. Too. I'm Graham. No, I said quietly. Not this. I have a Chrysler. For the first time, something cracked in his calm veneer. Jonathan stepped between us again. We're done talking. If you were, Bennett sighed. Lawrence. I have too, Lawrence nodded. Understood. His man, the one who had torn the tarp off, moved toward the driver's door of the Vesper One again. Jonathan lunged. Marcus grabbed the man's arm. The storage unit erupted into chaos. I stumbled back as fists flew. The intruder swung the metal rod. Marcus dodged. Jonathan tackled him from behind. Lawrence reached into his jacket. Marcus shouted, "Watch out!" Well, beers. I froze, heart clawing its way into my throat. Through the frantic blur of movement, Bennett Shore didn't move. He watched, hands behind his back, expression calm, like a judge presiding over the outcome of a contest already decided. Jonathan shoved the intruder into a shelving unit. Metal clattered, boxes crashed. Marcus kicked the rod away and yelled, "Susan, stay back!" Is another one. I stumbled toward the wall, trying to get away from the center of the fight. Then something happened so fast, I didn't fully register it. Lawrence lunged toward me. Jonathan saw him first. "No." Evelyn. He pushed me aside, just as Lawrence grabbed for the folder Marcus had given me earlier, the one with the titles, the trust papers, everything. Jonathan slammed into him, the two crashing hard against the unit wall. The folder slid across the floor, papers scattering like snow. Marcus tried to reach it. The intruder grabbed him. They fell. The metal rod skidded across the concrete and stopped at Bennett Shore's feet. Everything froze. Bennett slowly bent down, picked up the rod, turned it in his hand as though weighing possibilities. Then he looked at me, straight at me, his voice soft, precise. "You are wasting my time, Susan." 22 all. He lifted the rod. Jonathan yelled. Marcus yelled. I yelled. But before Bennett could step forward, a deafening sound ripped through the unit. Sirens. Red and blue lights flashed against the metal walls. Tires screeched outside. Multiple car doors slammed. Voices shouted. Police. Lots of them. Everyone in the unit froze. Bennett's expression flickered with real irritation for the first time. "Marcus," he said quietly, "you really shouldn't have called them." I have a doxed. But Marcus was staring at him, breathless, bruised, defiant. "I didn't," he said. We all turned. Jonathan lowered his phone. His voice shook. "I did. I wedded." For a moment, the entire room held its breath. Then chaos exploded again. Lawrence yelling, "Move." I way. Bennett dropping the rod. The intruder bolting toward the back exit. Jonathan grabbing my arm. Marcus pulling us toward the door. And through the blaring sirens, pounding footsteps, and shouting officers, I realized something. My son had finally chosen a side. Mine. Police flooded the unit so fast it felt unreal, blinding lights, shouted commands, the thunder of boots hitting concrete. For a moment, all I could hear was the frantic pounding of my own heartbeat. Officers surged past us, weapons drawn, voices sharp and decisive. Jonathan held onto my arm, guiding me toward the wall as the chaos churned around us. Marcus stayed close behind, breathing hard but steady. Everything smelled like hot metal and dust and adrenaline. Lawrence's men reacted instantly. One bolted toward the back exit, the other dove behind the storage racks. Officers swarmed after them. Lawrence himself froze, hands lifting calmly, as though he'd rehearsed this moment. Bennett, on the other hand, didn't flinch. His expression barely changed. He stood with the composure of a man receiving a routine business audit. The police surrounded him anyway, their commands loud and urgent. "Hands where we can see them. I. Step away from the vehicle." End quote. "Do not move." To vividi breast, Bennett Shore merely sighed. "Officers, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." "I will, but no one cared. Not tonight." The officer closest to him replied coldly, "You're under investigation for breaking and entering, extortion, and interference with legally owned property, if we hard." Bennett's brows lifted in mild annoyance. "I was invited. I'm here on business." 8. "Step back," the officer repeated, hand tightening on his weapon. Finally, Bennett complied, his expression unfazed, his gaze icy. While officers secured the immediate area, Jonathan helped me sit on a stack of crates near the entrance. He knelt beside me, voice tight but gentle. "Mom, are you okay?" "I am Maro Saus." I nodded, even though my hands were still trembling. "Jonathan, you called the police." He swallowed hard. "I had to. I know I messed up. I know I pushed all of this into motion. But when I saw you cornered, I wasn't going to let anything happen to you." Isdif cried o'er. My throat tightened. "You saved us, Isbai." He looked away, guilt shadowing his face. "I'm just trying to fix what I broke." Police escorted 2 cuffed men past us, Lawrence's people. One shot Jonathan a look full of venom. The other glared at Marcus. Officers pushed them toward the waiting squad cars. "Lawrence Grayson?" an officer barked. "Turn around, hands behind your back." End quote. Lawrence tried one last desperate tactic. "Officer, if you make this arrest, you're interfering with a multi-million-dollar legal transaction. That vehicle belongs to..." "It belongs," the officer interrupted, "to the legal heir listed on the title. And that's her. To one." He pointed directly at me. Lawrence's mouth snapped shut. For the first time since I'd seen him, panic flickered across his face. He turned to me, cold sweat on his brow. "Susan, listen to me. You don't understand what you're walking into. You sign the transfer, and we all walk away unharmed. It's created." Jonathan stepped forward, fury snapping in every line of his jaw. "She's not signing anything, Ias." Lawrence glared at him. "Then you've just endangered your family permanently." End quote. The officer shoved him toward the door. "That's enough." As he was escorted out, Lawrence locked eyes with me for a heartbeat longer than necessary. A promise, a threat, a warning. But he was in cuffs. He was beaten, and for the first time I saw fear in him. Next came Bennett. Officers approached carefully, like he was a ticking bomb. He kept his hands raised, posture relaxed. "I'll cooperate," he said smoothly. "But I expect a phone call. And my attorney." "When?" "You'll get both," an officer replied. "After processing." "It's not really." As they pulled him toward the exit, he turned his head just enough to look at me. No anger, no panic, just quiet calculation. "You should have taken the deal, Susan," he said. "This isn't over." "I know, for." The officer shoved him forward. "Move." End quote. When the last criminal was escorted out, the unit finally felt breathable again. My knees weakened with the release of fear. Jonathan sat beside me, wiping sweat from his brow. Marcus leaned on the opposite crate, chest rising and falling heavily. We had survived. Barely, but survived. A female officer approached us. Her voice was steady but kind. "Ma'am, I need your statement. And we'll need to photograph the unit. Also, do you have paperwork proving ownership of the vehicle?" End quote. Marcus retrieved the folder Jonathan had shielded with his life during the fight. The titles, the trust documents, everything. "Yes," I said, my voice steadier now. "I do." 24. The officer handed me a clipboard, and I began describing everything: how Marcus had warned me, how we found the intruder, how Bennett and Lawrence arrived, how the confrontation escalated. My own words felt surreal, like I was recounting a movie I'd watched rather than a night I'd lived through. Jonathan filled in the parts I couldn't articulate. When the officer finished, she sighed. "This was more serious than you realize. Earlier tonight, we received a tip linking Lawrence to an interstate theft ring. Your call might have helped break a major investigation." Jonathan swallowed. "So you're saying this wasn't just about the car?" "Arden." "No," she said. "This group has been after high-value prototypes for years. An infract. Her eyes softened as she looked at me. You're lucky you weren't alone tonight. It's not one. I glanced at Jonathan. I wasn't. I denying. Hours later, after statements, photographs, patrols, and barricades, the officers finally cleared the unit. The Vesper 1 sat silently in the center, gleaming beneath harsh fluorescent lights. Beautiful. Untouched. Ours. Jonathan ran a hand through his hair. Mom, we've been through hell tonight, but the car isn't safe here anymore. With bided. Of very dollars and attentions, Marcus nodded. It needs protection. Real protection. Jonathan turned to me. There's only one place that makes sense. The garage Dad prepared for you. I have Ephes. Marcus agreed. Your husband strengthened the walls, reinforced the security, installed climate controls. He built that space to protect something precious. Today, Jonathan looked at me softly. I think he meant this. I'm Stowe, the Vesper 1, my husband's secret, his masterpiece, his final act of love. I inhaled slowly, then nodded. Yes, we move it. Tonight, I have a need too. We positioned the ramps, we lined up Jonathan's truck, we breathed in the cold night air, and slowly, carefully, together, we rolled the Vesper 1 out of Unit 17. For the first time since Robert died, I didn't feel alone, but as we prepared to leave, the officer's warning echoed through my mind. This isn't over. Well, he turned, and I knew she was right. By the time we reached the garage, dawn was breaking thin strands of pink light stretching across the sky, like someone was slowly erasing the dark. The world looked softer, quieter, almost peaceful. Nothing like the chaos we had just escaped. Jonathan drove ahead with the Vesper 1 secured to the trailer, while Marcus stayed behind me the entire way, watching our rearview mirrors like hawks. No suspicious cars, no shadows following us, no sign of Bennett's men. But my stomach stayed tight, braced for the next blow. When we backed into the garage, something inside me loosened. This place, this space Robert had built in silence, felt like a sanctuary again. Safe, intentional, mine. Jonathan and Marcus lowered the Vesper 1 down the ramp with careful hands, the metal reflecting the early morning glow. As its tires touched the epoxy floor, it looked like it belonged there, like Robert had carved this entire room around it. Like the garage had been waiting for this moment. Once the car was in place, Marcus exhaled deeply and leaned against a workbench. She's home, he murmured. Jonathan nodded. Dad would have been proud of this. Is one Bose. Those words hit me directly in the heart. For a few minutes, we stood there in silence, breathing, recovering, letting the night settle into memory. The adrenaline slowly faded, replaced by exhaustion that made my limbs heavy. But beneath that exhaustion, something else stirred. A sense of completion, of purpose, of finally understanding my husband's choices. I walked closer to the Vesper 1, running my fingertips along the cool metal. The silver surface reflected my face faintly older. Yes, but stronger than I'd seen myself in months. I understand now, I whispered. You didn't hide this from me. You protected me with it. I will. Jonathan came to stand beside me. Mom, I didn't realize how much Dad was carrying, how much he tried to shield you from, and's ground. I touched his hand, the small gesture, shaking him more than I expected. He did what he thought was right. And now we have to do the same. I won. We spent the next hour organizing the garage. Marcus checked the locks, reinforced the doors, repositioned security cameras. Jonathan cleaned up the scattered paperwork, taped boxes shut, sorted through what we had collected. The sun climbed higher, filling the garage with a warm, golden light that made everything look almost unreal. Finally, when the last task was done, the three of us collapsed on old stools near the workbench. Marcus rubbed his hands together. I know this is a lot, but the police files are already being processed. Bennett and Lawrence will be tied up in legal knots for a while. When for? Jonathan nodded. They won't get near the Vesper again. Not with all the evidence we handed over. It is. I let out a long, shaky breath. So, is it truly over? No. Marcus hesitated. Over for now. But men like Bennett don't forget easily. He'll try legal channels next. He'll send letters, lawyers, threats, too. Where one did it do's, Jonathan added softly. But we'll fight back. You're not alone in this anymore. I got a prize. Something warm and fragile bloomed in my chest, a small flame I hadn't felt from Jonathan in years. Forgiveness, renewal, maybe even love. I looked at my son, really looked, and saw the boy who used to climb onto Robert's lap to hear stories about engines and speed. The boy who once whispered secrets into my ear, sticky with strawberry jam. The boy who lost himself chasing money but was finding his way back, step by step. "You came for me," I said quietly. He froze. And in a rare moment of vulnerability, Jonathan's eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't there when Dad needed me," he whispered. "I refused to lose you too." I was reckoned. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You didn't lose me." Quote. A silence full of meaning settled between us, heavy, healing, hopeful. Marcus stood up, clearing his throat. "Before you both start crying, there's something else," he boded. Jonathan rolled his eyes. "Marcus, not now. Is private," but Marcus only smiled. "Robert asked me to wait until the Vesper was safe before giving you this. Dude it reda, to dude and valende." He pulled a small metal tin from his jacket. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. My breath caught, my husband's handwriting, hands trembling. I unfolded it. "My love, if you're reading this, it means the car is safe, and so are you. There is one last thing you must do, not for me, for yourself. I think you's," the letter continued. "You've spent your entire life caring for others, me, our son, everyone who needed you. But now, I want you to build something for you, a life that belongs to no one else. Use the trust, use the garage, use the freedom I leave behind. Create something that makes you proud." 25. Tears blurred my vision. Every word felt like the final stitch, closing an open wound. "And forgive Jonathan. He will need you more than he knows." I would have senenders with cries. My breath hitched. I glanced at my son, who wiped his face quickly when he noticed me looking. "And lastly, leave this garage when you're ready, not before. Your next chapter begins the moment you choose it." In fine list, I pressed the letter to my heart, inhaling the faint scent of old ink and machine oil. Robert's scent. Jonathan placed an arm around my shoulders. "Mom, what do you want your next chapter to be?" At all rate, the question lingered in the quiet morning air. I looked around the garage, at the Vesper One, at Marcus's loyal gaze, at Jonathan's uncertain but hopeful eyes, at the space Robert had built with love, planning, and vision. And for the first time since he died, I felt something powerful grow inside me. Possibility. I stood up slowly. "My next chapter," I said, voice steady, "starts today." 2 tours. They both looked at me, waiting. "I'm going to open this garage," I said simply. "But not to sell anything. To restore, to protect, to honor your father's work, and maybe to build something of my own. I have a limited." Jonathan grinned. "Mom's starting a business." "I have," Marcus laughed. "Your husband would love that, to well die." I smiled stronger than I'd been in years. But deep inside, one truth remained. This wasn't just about the Vesper One. This was about reclaiming my life. And tomorrow, the world would hear my story. Morning light softened everything: the garage floors, the cars, even the shadows that still clung to the far corners. For the first time since Robert died, I didn't feel like a woman surviving the fallout of a broken inheritance. I felt like a woman stepping into something new, something chosen, something earned. The Vesper One sat quietly behind me, almost glowing under the skylight. It wasn't just a car anymore. It was a reminder that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums, sometimes it waits, and sometimes it lives quietly in the hands of a woman everyone underestimated. I told Jonathan and Marcus I needed an hour alone. They nodded, closing the door behind them, leaving only the soft hum of the overhead lights. I walked slowly through the garage, touching each carefully arranged drawer, each labeled cabinet, each blueprint rolled neatly on the shelves. For 42 years, I'd believed Robert's silence meant distance, that his secrets meant he was closing himself off from me. Now, standing in the place he built with meticulous devotion, I finally understood the truth. He wasn't hiding from me. He was preparing the world for me. My reflection appeared faintly in the polished metal of the Vesper's fender, wrinkled eyes, tired face, grief softening into something gentler. "Thank you," I whispered into the quiet, "for believing in the woman I didn't know I could become." I have. The words weren't dramatic. They weren't poetic, but they felt honest in a way that made my throat close. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the smell of oil, leather, and faint cologne settle around me like a final embrace. A soft knock pulled me out of my thoughts. Jonathan peeked in, cautious. "Mom?" Marcus said. "The officers sent over the preliminary report, ADA." I nodded and let him in. He handed me a folder, simple, manila, official. Inside were copies of the recovered contracts, transfer attempts, and recorded statements the officers took overnight. My old life might have crumbled quietly, but Bennett's was collapsing loudly. Jonathan hovered in the doorway. "You don't have to read it right now, Ice." But I did. Because I needed closure. Closure I had earned through fire, fear, and a night that still echoed in my bones. The report laid everything bare. The forged documents, the illegal attempts to seize the Vesper One, the recorded calls between Bennett and Lawrence, evidence strong enough to bury them in lawsuits and investigations for years. My hands didn't shake this time. They were steady, grounded. Jonathan waited until I closed the folder before asking the question he'd held on to for months. "So, what happens now, Mom?" It's Stowe greeting. I took a breath, long, deliberate, clean. "Now," I said softly, "we stop letting fear shape our lives. It's takes of Deverett Mile." He looked surprised. "Fear? It's not was very had. Yes, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of disappointing each other, fear of not being enough. In a recu." He swallowed hard. "Mom, I'm sorry. For all of it. For what I said. For what I assumed. For what I became." I think the remand. I stepped closer, touched his cheek lightly. "You didn't become something, Jonathan. You got lost. And you found your way back." I backed. He blinked rapidly, trying to keep tears from falling. "It didn't work. We can rebuild," I said. "Just like your father rebuilt his life in this garage. But we rebuild with the truth." "Actually, you on." Jonathan nodded. "I'm ready, too," end quote. The most 5 sold in Rydung, and for the first time, I believed him. Later that afternoon, after Marcus left and the police updates slowed, I sat on the patio of my Carmel cottage with a notebook. The ocean breeze carried the scent of pine and salt water. The wind chimes tapped softly, like encouragement. I wrote down the first sentence without hesitation. "This garage saved my life, Tredig. Not because of the money, not because of the legacy, but because it forced me to confront the parts of myself I had abandoned long before Robert's death. My voice, my boundaries, my courage, my worth." I found myself imagining a new kind of restoration business, not one built on engines alone, but on stories. Women like me, women discarded, underestimated, overlooked. Our lives didn't end at betrayal or abandonment. They often began there. The idea wasn't polished yet, but it was there, a spark, a future, a next chapter. As the sun lowered, painting the garden in gold, Jonathan joined me with 2 cups of tea. "You know," he said, "Dad always believed you could do anything. Win 9 enders." I smiled. I just had to believe it too. 100 well freshens. We talked for hours about grief, about mistakes, about second chances. Not perfectly, not without stumbles, but honestly, and that was enough. When he finally left for the night, promising to return tomorrow with paint samples for the cottage gate, I stepped back into the garage one last time. The Vesper One glowed under the lights, patient, like it understood that healing takes time. I placed Robert's letter on the workbench, smoothing it gently. "I'm ready," I whispered, and this time, I meant it. As I turned off the lights, leaving the garage in peaceful darkness, I felt something unexplainable settle inside me. Not victory, not revenge, not triumph, but peace. A full circle kind of peace that only comes when you stop running from the truth and start walking toward your life again. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real inheritance Robert left behind. At the end of everything, grief, betrayal, danger, and truth, I learned one lesson. A woman's worth is never defined by what she is given, but by what she refuses to surrender. Your voice, your dignity, your boundaries, your ability to rebuild, your right to start over at any age. And now, I want to hear from you. Which part of this journey spoke to you the most? Have you ever rebuilt your life after someone tried to break it? Share your story below. I read every comment. And if you want more powerful real-life storytelling about strong women reclaiming their lives, hit subscribe to Silent Her and stay with me for the next chapter.